inspired you? What got you started in filmmaking?
Well, it started from loving storytelling as a little girl. I was definitely that kid that stayed up really, really late. To this day, I'm very much a night owl, and I would stay up reading. I would have like the flashlight under the covers and just stay up reading really late. And it wasn't until middle school that it really shifted. I had some amazing like teachers and educators in my life. And I had a teacher inspire me to actually enter a poem into a contest. And I did it basically for just kind of like a why not factor. I went for it. And I didn't necessarily win anything, but my poem was actually one of many that were selected to be published. So I did wind up with like a hardcover book with one of my poems in it, which was really, really cool. And this was when I was like 11, 12, something like that. And that was really, really motivating. And I feel like that was a shift for me in terms of, all right, I love stories. I'm really ready to tell my own. And from there, I was able to have some amazing experiences and different internships and programs where I got to work with other young filmmakers to make shorts. And that led to, okay, storytelling by way of screenwriting. And that's where I find myself now is screenwriter, writer, director.
Right on, right on. So what was the poem about?
It was called To Love is to Catch a Glimpse of Heaven. And it is actually based on a quote. I'm huge on quotes. I have different like notes in my phone of just quotes that people that I know have said, or ones that I kind of hear in passing, like everywhere. They're just a collection of tidbits that I find everywhere. And that one I don't really remember. I think even the author might be unknown. So it's kind of like a mysterious but beautiful sentiment. And I was like, this would be a really, really great poem. And so the poem is essentially inspired by that, like all of the little things that are beautiful that shouldn't be overlooked, basically.
That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're 11, you go ahead and you produce this poem and you get recognized. And then like tell us a little bit more about that journey. Like in high school, did you continue to write, or did you know then you wanted to go to film school? How did that evolve?
For sure. I don't think I ever really planned on going to film school. That wasn't really my goal. I feel like I in high school definitely was still writing, a big journaler. I guess less so today, but I always have really liked journaling when I can. I try not to be hard on myself when I don't do it consistently. But the way that I see it kind of showing up in high school is actually during like Black History Month. There was initiative that I took to just spotlight like little known I guess lesser known is probably a better way of saying it, figures. We know the Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's and Rosa Parks, but it was, highlighting people like Claudette Colvin, people that are amazing and have made great impact, but maybe don't always get recognized for it. And so I think it was every day. I think it was every day in Black History Month. I had written a short bio or highlight and would like broadcast that to my school over like
Oh,
I guess our sound system and whatnot. And was doing short
wow.
stories and stuff. Yeah, I was doing short stories and stuff like that at the time. Just in my own writing, some different programs to like do shorts. And then I didn't really get exposed to film school until college. I went to Hampton University undergrad, and I had an amazing teacher, Professor Balls, who's there to this day. And, he suggested that I consider film schools as just a great like jumping off point for career and everything like that. And that's how AFI first really got on my radar. I had interned at BET over one of the summers in like 2019, and we drove past it, oddly enough, like really, really, really quickly, like quick enough that I could get like AFI, literally the name and the logo. And then when this, with Professor Balls, told me about it, I was like, is that the school that I like really, really passed by like that one time? The dots started connecting. And then I started to research it and just fell in love with the history of it. And, obviously amazing alumni and amazing program, and that became my top choice for film schools.
Right on, right on. So that's amazing. So essentially, you didn't decide when you went to college. You
No,
just someone inspired you and said, "Hey, you should look into this."
basically, yeah, yeah.
That's great. How did you get the internship at BET? Was it just like as a writer intern, or what type of internship was it?
Yeah, it was a scripted development
Oh,
internship. There's a program called HBCU in LA. The full name is like EOP, um, Entertainment Industry College. Oh no. Collegiate or professional. Forget the longer acronym for it, but the program itself is called HBCU in LA. It's an amazing program. And basically, the way that it works, they have host companies that, essentially agree to host an intern. And then HBCU in LA is like an additional like professional workshops and networking mixers and
oh,
like different things that are built up around the cohort of students that come and intern. They host them, like we stayed at Emerson College in Hollywood, and that was like where our home away from home was for that month or so. And the way that mine worked, I basically made it work through persistence, because I did get accepted to HBC in LA, but I didn't get accepted into an internship that was like a host company of theirs. And
mm,
applying to other companies and kind of like continuing to talk to them like, hey, like I think I can make it work. I just got this internship. I know they're not a partner company at the time. I don't know if anything has changed, but at the time BET wasn't, I think, a partnered host company and whatnot. And so
mm-hmm.
being persistent and whatnot, I essentially was able to convince them to combine and allow me to be a HBCU in LA participant and intern at BET and like combine it, which is really awesome. I'm really glad they allowed that to happen, because I also wouldn't have known where I would have stayed for that particular summer. Yeah, and that's how I wound up at BET.
Love that. I love that. So just pretty much making it happen.
Pretty much, pretty much.
That's so cool. Okay, so you have this internship, and then within that internship, you got to work on scripts and kind of like develop and get kind of like a insight to what that process looked like. Or can you talk a little bit about how that inspired you to take the next step forward?
For sure. So I was in the scripted development department, and I did coverage for different scripts, TV movies, and pilots or episodic. I was also able to do different like admin tasks here and there, like my first experience, like rolling calls or something like that. I did the least amount of office tasks, if I'm being honest, but it was my first exposure to like the corporate entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
uh, kind of that scene. I got to do also like some pretty cool things. Like I worked the 2-day BET experience at the Staples Center, now known as a crypto, but always going to be affectionately the Staples Center. And that was cool. And I was actually working with the legal team, basically going around and talking to talent or their managers to get them to sign off on release forms. So like, I remember, I remember like having to go up to the stage or whatnot. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Jadena. That
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like we need your signature and whatnot. And figuring that out. There's a couple artists that also were like newer that I wish I remember the name of right now, but it was cool to just be able to be part of that event, because it's just like a huge, I feel like, of like Black Hollywood. Like it just feels like a huge like family reunion in a sense, even though you might not even know everyone. It kind of feels like that. And I actually met a friend that has been a long-term friend to this day. We got coffee the other day. So it's just crazy. You never really know where you're going to meet someone or have that kind of experience. So that was definitely a highlight of my BET internship. And I feel like it led to what I did after and at AFI and everything, just by the exposure to what it looks like to have notes given, sitting in on some of those meetings where you can hear a pitch being made, or you can hear feedback being given, and how the writer takes that and addresses certain things or doesn't address certain things, and what the expectation is also like in turnaround. And it was just good exposure, and I was able to ask a lot of questions and be pretty involved, be pretty involved to just, kind of get an understanding of what that looks like in the network space, and like just BT as a network and everything. So it was great. It was a great experience overall.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it, also being previewed to like pitches and being able to do coverage, just kind of like getting an opportunity to see everything. That sounds like a great experience.
Totally. Another highlight was a mentor at the time that I'd met earlier, like years prior. They actually, I didn't know this, but it overlapped in a way that, I was sometimes asked to go and get guests from like the lobby and bring them upstairs. And it just happened to be her. And it was kind of like an amazing full circle moment, because this is someone that had poured into me and been there to support me. And also an AFI alum, Mel Jones, producing a lot.
Oh, I know Mel Jones.
Yeah. So her like being able to be there, and then me, in like intern mode, but also like, oh my gosh, great to see you. That was a really, really cool moment. As well as another filmmaker, I forget his name, but I had the privilege of having one of my shorts screened at the African American Women in Cinema showcase in Harlem, and he was there with a different film, and then was then pitching something to BET at the time. So I think the timing of how these things started to overlap, those were also like the good memories. It's just kind of some of those like full circle moments that happen.
That's beautiful. I love those moments.
Same.
Yeah. And Mel, yeah, I was just thinking that when you were talking to me, I was like, oh yeah, actually, because after I graduated, they had, I don't know if they still have this now, but they had this opportunity where you can pair with other alumni, and I got
Oh,
paired.
interesting.
Do you all do that still?
I don't have a mentor pair. There were people that during our years that we were paired to, but not necessarily alum. Maybe I'm also too recent of an alum. Maybe it's coming, and maybe it's coming down the line, but that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, it could be coming down.
Mm-hmm.
But I got paired with Mel, and
Um,
so yeah, so she's really cool. She's really
great.
awesome. Always get a
Yeah.
chance to reach out, and she gives her advice. I even introduced, do you know Sam Robertson? He's a producer
No.
director. Yeah, he's really
Oh,
great too. You should get to know him.
cool.
He just finished a feature, and with a bunch of AFI alumni, and it was just pretty much a run and gun script that he made into a feature from his thesis. And he's,
Nice.
yeah, but anyway, I digress. So okay, so um now that you're doing your internship and you're going into you're starting to see, okay, I'm going to apply to film school. Was it just AFI that you applied to?
No, I applied to NYU and, my goodness, in Columbia's film program as
Mm-hmm.
well. Oh my gosh. I did apply twice to NYU, like when everything was said and done.
You want it,
And didn't
you
hear
was it
back either.
Spike? Was it Spike Lee? Is that why?
Gosh, I wish. I got it. He did sign my Spike book, the most recent book. I got that signed at the Academy Museum. That was super, super cool. He wrote, just keep writing. He put on the cover, and I was like, oh, I was in my HBCU gear, my Hampton sweatshirt. That was a cool moment. But I don't know what he was up to. I don't know if it was him or anybody else. Clearly it wasn't meant for me to go there. But those two are the other ones that I applied to. I missed the deadline for USC. So I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but yeah, AFI was always my top choice. So between those three, I felt like it was a good, good chance, hopefully, of one of the three.
Oh, that's big. That's big. I mean, this year it's top. It always goes in between the
Yeah.
other ones, but top rated top film schools. But so at NYU, do they have a screenwriting program, or is it more like a broad based program?
I think that it would have been, I think that it would have potentially, I do think there's a screenwriting, like not
Mm,
discipline, but I think there is a program. I'm only like unsure only because obviously the structure is a little bit different. And I know like there's Titian and like all the different branches of it, I guess. But I was applying specifically for screenwriting.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Right
Yeah.
on.
And so, yeah, I mean, to not hear anything, I was like, sheesh, but it is, it is what it is. I don't
You hear
know.
that, NYU? What happened? You got to be sending letters at least. Hey, we got you for the second
Yeah.
time, keep going, keep writing.
Right. Or just the even just I think it was like we've confirmed receipt of your application or whatever, but like usually it's at least the like we regret to inform you, which is never fun, but it's like at least like okay, it was looked at. I don't know. But yeah, but it's I mean, I wound up where I was supposed to be. So it's all
Yeah.
good.
So you got into AFI. Let's talk a little bit about that experience. How was, what was that process like? Did you get a chance to work on cycles? Because I know sometimes as screenwriters, you may not make it out to set.
Yeah, yeah. I applied at the end of my senior year at Hampton. And around that time, I think that they were feeling like we were only going to be going home for like a week or so. This is like COVID obviously hit, and a week or
Mm.
so turned into the rest of the year / the rest of like the next 2 or 3 years. And I had a virtual interview with the discipline head, Anna Thomas, and another faculty member at the time. And we were all wearing glasses and we were all born in July. And I was like so excited and prepared and all of that. I went to the AFI Silver Theater in Silver Spring, Maryland. And my mom and I saw Parasite, which was like the last movie that we were able to see in theaters before everything was like shut down. And so I was like, everything is aligned. And it was a really good interview and I got to know them and all of that, but I wasn't accepted that first time.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up getting accepted to a program at Columbia University in New York for strategic communication, which is what I majored in at Hampton. So I kind of call it like a divine detour because I did wind up going to spend a year in New York and was part of this amazing like fellowship, which actually got covered my tuition and housing. And I love New York. So that was really fun. I made a film while I was out there as well, because that was also like my North Star. During that time, I think strategic communication, it's storytelling is just very different. Like a press release is obviously very different than a script and like different things like that, but it is storytelling at its core. And during the quarantine at Columbia, I decided to revisit a script that honestly, I feel like has been on my heart since I was like 11. And it was a very like massive concept and I never really finished it. And I'd used that time at like quarantining at Columbia when I first got there to finish that. And I wound up using an excerpt of that as my sample the second time around that I applied to AFI and was fortunate to get it at the time. So I was like, how could something like 10 years old open a door 10 years later? Like, okay, coincidence. Not really. But it was a lot of confirmation too. Like, it's a very spiritual, faith-based script. I feel like God put on my heart when I was very little. So to finish that and be able to get in with that script, I felt was really amazing. And then, yeah, I participated in the cycle films our first year, co-wrote one with the director, our first one. I was script supervisor on set. I was volunteering to crew on other people's sets too. I didn't know that, apparently that isn't necessarily something that, a lot of the screenwriters might be eager to do, but I wanted to be part of the process as much as possible. So I was like a grip on some, crafty on others, general PA helping hand. I got to help with production design on some of the projects. And that allowed me to get exposed to a lot of different things. But script supervising was my favorite because it's like an intersection of the writing and directing piece. You get to talk to you're up there and kind of like in the mix enough to see how they're also interacting with the DP. And it's just very dynamic. I just like it a lot. And I'm a note taker. So yeah, that first year was definitely busy, but I got a lot of amazing experiences. My cohort is amazing. So I got to meet a lot of great people and work with them. Yeah, it was a crazy but good first year for
No,
sure.
that's great to hear that you were able to get on set. Definitely.
Totally, totally, yeah.
Yeah, and script soup. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're like right there by camera. You're right there by the director. And you're just you pretty much got the front row seat.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It also introduced me to another skill set that I could then freelance on other projects
Yes.
that were like independent shorts or my friends' projects and things like that. And then I get to learn that that's its own thing in and of itself, that is covered by the union and you can charge a certain rate and all these different things. Because I do feel like people's ear is usually open also for those other opportunities they can do, to build the craft and everything, and then also make money, which is always great when you can do both. And in this case, I was like, oh, here's something else that I can actually freelance in my free time, that I can build up, my knowledge and get to meet people and work on great things, but then can also make a little bit of money here and there, which is nice. See different places, travel a little bit or whatever the case may be. So that was also really cool as well.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, I get the sense that you're very persistent and hardworking, industrious, very industrious,
Oh,
making it
thank
happen.
you.
Whatever it takes. And so, okay, after you were on set, but remind me, or can you share with the audience your first year? What are you working on in the screenwriting discipline?
Yeah. So our first year, we focused on 3 different cycle films. The first one was one that I co-wrote with the director. Usually they cycle through the different disciplines as to who is pitching the film. In my year, the directors were pitching the first cycle film, in which case, like the writers, like myself, were then listening out for the different concepts that we found were interesting and then kind of lending ourselves to, hey, would you want to co-write this? And then joining the team that way. The second time around, was it the second or third time around that the screenwriters got to pitch? I think it's the second term around that we screenwriters got to pitch the concepts. And in my year, we did something that had never been done before, which was kind of exciting, which was basically they wanted to simulate the TV system as much as possible and do like a
Interesting.
writer's room, which was cool. The only caveat was that we had to then decide, are we going to be part of the TV cycle or second, pitching our own standalone short. And in my case, I decided to join the team of writers. My roommate at the time was another screenwriter. I roomed with a producer and a screenwriter my first year. Both Black women, both amazingly talented. The concept was centered around a Black woman. And when we were building our team, we also, had a lot of, diversity in our team, Black writers, producers, and then, from the editors and whatnot, definitely diverse and whatnot too. But that core team being Black women was really empowering. And
That's
I didn't
awesome.
want to miss out on that. And so we banded together and we created a 4-episode
Oh,
mini series called Token. And basically it explores a young woman named Sade in her senior year of high school, exploring her Blackness and stepping into what that means to her and embracing that. And it's also kind of situated around her decision as to whether she wants to go to an HBCU or a PWI, predominantly
mm-hmm.
white institution. And all of us as writers had some way of connection to her story and what she was going through and all the different themes. And I think there are a lot of universal themes about belonging and acceptance and self-esteem and confidence and all of that we can all relate to, period. But it was really cool to get to focus that through this specific lens and POV. And yeah, we had fun with it. Like the whole production, like we got t-shirts, we were taking pictures on campus. Like it was like a thing. Like we really wanted to celebrate having that camaraderie and to create a story that was like for us by us. Like that was something that was like, I'm not gonna opt out of that, even whatever I feel like my short could be or whatever, like thinking of just a big picture and wanting to be part of something amazing. And that was definitely a very cool part of like that first year. So that made our first year a little bit non-traditional, but also like we'll always be able to say we were part of the first cohort that did the TV cycles, which was really, really cool. There were 2 other miniseries that were produced that year too.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that work? So you produce, how long are these episodes?
I think they were like between
Okay.
5 and 7 minutes. I think the idea was to have like a half hour in total.
Okay.
Um, I don't remember exactly at this point, but I think that was like around what we were doing because my episode I think was like 7 pages, something like that. Maybe even shorter. And then the challenge is like, how much story could you possibly tell in that amount of time? But then
Yeah.
you'd be surprised, like more than you would think. And I just think it was my historic thing has been like brevity. That's one thing in writing that I definitely, it challenged me in the best of ways when it comes to that, because every part of the page is like real estate. Like, how much do we really need of this? Can we say that shorter? But not losing the meaning and the character and the depth. So yeah, it was a challenge, but I think we all really put our heads together and pulled it off. So I'm really proud of it. Yeah.
Fascinating. And so does that mean you opt out of doing the other cycles? You're just doing the TV series?
In this case, it did mean that I'll speak for myself. I'm not sure if other people had a different experience, but in this case, I really just did that first cycle, the short that I co-wrote with another director, and the TV cycle. And then for cycle 3, I think that I volunteered maybe to help on other people's projects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, others may have done a third cycle. So I'm speaking for myself, but I did feel like in between also just volunteering to help crew on other people's sets and things like that, I definitely felt like I was pretty busy. I kept myself
Yeah.
pretty busy too. But yeah, those were the big projects that I got to work on.
Sweet. Okay. And then so
Yeah.
like the second year, you
Mhm.
now they're trying to prep you with actual something to go into the world, right?
Yeah, yeah. The second year is definitely geared around thesis. Um, I had a unique experience in that regard as well, because I was fortunate to get to work on a thesis film between the summer of my first and second year.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I teamed up with a director that was a second year at the time, and came on board to co-write his thesis, a concept that was already in the works. And then it was kind of like, would love to have another writer come in to help, work out some of the kinks in terms of plot, but then also like a fine polish and all of that. And even at that stage, there were still probably about like 10 drafts between the two of us that we worked on, this had to be like about a month, if that, time period when I was able to come on board the team. And then also was able to be on set for it, which was great as a script supervisor once again. And so that's the thesis that I worked on. That allowed for versus the rest of my peers, I think the rest of the year for them was definitely a lot more like thesis being something that trickled throughout the whole year. And in my case, because I had worked on one, I'll say I had more time to work on my portfolio. Whether or not I managed my time accordingly remains to be seen. But I did feel like, oh, look, the timing is great where now I can work on my portfolio. throughout the rest of the year versus like that in addition to thesis, because it was out of the way by the summer.
And so talk to us about this portfolio. What did you end up after you finished AFI? What did you have to go to market with?
Yeah. So my portfolio is a pilot and then 2 features. And they're both coming of age features, coming of age dramas. And the pilot is more of like a mystery drama. And I feel like there was definitely a goal of like having the most work possible, but I also felt like it was important to focus on quality and like where things were at in terms of just being solid pieces of work. And so that's why I decided to go with the ones that I selected. And then also because I'm open to TV and film, I wanted to definitely have both versus just all features. Yeah, do you want me to share kind of what they're about as well?
Yeah,
or just
let's hear it.
Scope is. So the feature is a modern adaptation of the classic Robin Hood story set in the present day New York in the Black elite. So essentially, we have a character that's like a socialite, and she's grown up in a wealthy family. Her family is accused of something. Let me see what I want to. Yeah, her family basically falls on her father is framed for a crime, which trickles into her losing this lifestyle, this lavish lifestyle that she's been accustomed to. She then discovers that her father is not the only one that has been accused of what he's been accused of, and decides to kind of exact her revenge on these other people that weren't caught by stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And that carries over into just like the different seasons of her learning what it is to actually give selflessly versus from a place of revenge. And I also wanted to just explore Blackness in terms of there's certain affluence and wealth and status and things that can afford you a certain type of lifestyle, but the reality of being Black in America is inescapable when it comes to certain prejudices, unfortunately, and biases and different things like that. So it is exploring belonging in that way as well. So that's one that I'm excited about. That's the pilot script. The other features, one of them is called As on Earth, which is inspired by
that's a nice title.
It's inspired by my mom has always had a green thumb. Like she literally has a fern that's older than me. So I grew up around a lot of plants and greenery, and grew up in Maryland and everything like that. And the story, it's a mother-daughter story about the daughter's the lead. She basically is in a situation where this plot of land that's been in her family for generations, her mother wants to sell it because it used to belong to her grandfather, who's since passed. And over the course of the film, you see these 2 women basically grapple with having very different relationships with this individual. He was a very different person as a father than he was as a grandfather. And there's a lot of like tension around the different dynamics, and then also the weight of what he's left behind, not only just this plot of land, but these different like family secrets that emerge. And so it's another coming of age story that's really centered around the friction of this like mother-daughter relationship, and them grappling with how they're processing grief differently. And I really am excited to just show on screen Black people gardening and having like farms and land, and are like kind of reclaiming the earth in a sense, where we know like historically Black people in fields has been a very different story, a very different scene, very different context. And this is meant to show, us in a different light in the same setting, and just taking ownership of our claim to land and nature and this earth in
Mm,
general, and our impact and what we're planting, and also what we're sowing and reaping from it too.
mm.
So that one is really, really dear to me as well. And then the last one is called Brownstone, and it centers a father-son relationship. I really like family dynamics in a lot of
Mhm.
my writing. And it's essentially about a young man whose older brother gets into trouble, set in Harlem. And over a series of events over one night, their father actually winds up being the one to arrest his older brother. His father is a police officer.
Oh,
It
whoa.
sets him into a tailspin of just um, kind of looking at his father differently in terms of like duty to family versus duty to his role and his title. And we pick up to his senior year of high school, and his brother comes back home and is trying to kind of pick up the pieces of where his life is at that point. And then the two of them, as brothers, reconnecting with their father also there and grappling with the truth of that night. Because the protagonist believes that his brother is innocent, like in a defying sort of manner. So it kind of takes apart grief as well in a different way,
Hmm.
and also anger, and then focusing it on this like that core like father-son story and journey of acceptance and healing. And I love stories set in New York. So that one I'm really excited about. And we actually shot a proof of concept for that one in August. I was able to get some AFI friends to help out with that, which was really special. We were like dodging palm trees and stuff like that would have clearly given away that it was LA. But totally intend for the feature to be shot in New York, for sure. And I've seen a lot of people have success with having a short that they were able to say, hey, like this is meant to be a feature, or using it to fundraise for feature budget and stuff like that. So that's the plan, to use the short for in the long term.
Whoa. Sounds like you were really busy, not procrastinating and mismanaging your time. That's so cool.
Thank you. I hope that I get better with time management in general moving forward, but I'm happy with what I was able to get done in the last 2 years.
So why don't you tell me a little bit more about Pitch Fest?
Totally. So Pitch Fest is an event for the screenwriters. You could essentially call it the screenwriting showcase. And people from the industry, executives, prospective managers, people that would be able to potentially represent us or even just give us feedback on where we can pitch our stories and get our feet on the ground as writers in the industry are invited, and they listen to us pitch one of our samples from our portfolio. So it's a really good time to kind of get yourself out there and get the exposure, get the feedback. Ideally, there's time to also kind of get to know them a little bit. And a lot of it is sharing really just about yourself as an individual. Like in our prep, a lot of it was digging into our own stories, and you want to have like the pitch of yourself and also the pitch of your feature or pilot, and in a very short amount of time. So there's definitely an art to it, and there's a lot to like hone in on. But we, due to the strike, of course it was rescheduled, and it will be happening the end of this month, this November. And it's coming up in a couple of weeks. Even like this week, we have like the tech rehearsal. So it's going to be all virtual, which is going to like expand the number of people that are able to attend because they have more flexibility, which is nice. And yeah, I definitely am excited about it, just in terms of also just we've already graduated, but that will really just be the culmination of my entire AFI experience. And it's an exciting time now that the double strike is over and victory has been won on both sides in a lot of ways. And I hope that also means that my peers and I will have plenty of opportunities to, have our voices heard and get out there. So that's what the next couple of days really until the tech rehearsal, but then weeks leading up till Pitch Fest looks like, for me.
Fantastic. That is so cool. And do
Mhm.
they at AFI, or did you take it upon yourself, or is it a mixture of both?
Do
Practice the art of
they?
the pitch?
They definitely prepare us a lot. I think that
Mhm.
they encourage us to do our own, independent work, of course, but we're going in pretty prepared. We had like a series of different interviews, preps in terms of just walking it through and talking through what we're going to say, seeing other people's, previous years, what other people's recordings of previous pitch
Oh,
fests, and learning from like, okay, like maybe I'll do this, maybe I won't do that. Um, Writing it and rewriting it and getting feedback and rewriting it again. And then, all of us, like now, I'm sure with all of the time that has gone on, I think that we, hopefully have, been practicing independently or just keeping our projects in mind and that kind of thing. So they definitely prepped us a lot for it. And even like the tech rehearsal, I think is like an additional layer of like preparation to just make sure that everything is going to go smoothly.
that's amazing. Right on. So, is there any, how long has it been done virtually? Is it just since COVID? Is that when that happened?
I feel like there was a shift. I feel like that had to be the turning point. I know there have been, I think historically it has been in person, but
Mhm.
it's likely going to stay this way because of the flexibility that the guests have.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it probably is a little bit easier to maneuver versus if it were a in-person event, like sitting through that many, like I guess it would be different to like cycle through a bunch of different people and like maybe have to move from room to room or whatever the case may be. Like in person, that might be more, just to like even organize, I would imagine. So I think that going forward it will be virtual, and it probably did start around COVID. I don't remember exactly, but seems that would make the most sense to me.
And is historically, since they've done this, have they shared with y'all like, oh, fellows who have gone through this have been successful by this pitch and it going on being made or anything like that?
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely success stories from it. I wish I could share more of them. But a lot of people have said that even if it wasn't necessarily that someone gained representation from doing it, that, you're most likely going to get good feedback on your project. You're most likely going to have a tool that you can also use within your network. Like we're all given invites that we can share with people that we might have met at the BT experience, for example, or at any of these internships that we've all done. Like, it is a way to loop people in there and kind of keep your network warm and let people know what you're up to. And then that on the back end, maybe that person wasn't able to take you on at that time, but remembered you for something else, or maybe didn't take you on in terms of, being able to breathe life into your specific project, but maybe brought you on for a rewrite. So there's a lot of like different opportunities that can come from it that, one might not realize. And then just the art and practice of pitching. I feel like there's something to be gained from that in general. Um, I'm going to be like passing my like tassel again, just invisibly, like that'll be, it will feel like the culmination of it all of the 2 years. So I'm looking forward to it, and I am hopeful that it does lead to representation. But I do know that with Brownstone still like in post-production and having that as a short proof of concept, like that's something that I'd be excited to share in addition to the feature, because it's hard to sit through and read an entire 100+ page feature, but to have like a 10-minute here's what it is, and then maybe that even inspires you to read the full length feature. Like I just feel like having both is a really exciting thing for me. So that's what I'm focused on getting done as well.
Oh, no, yeah, that sounds good. You got your goals, and just like hearing your story throughout, you're very persistent, and it seems like to me you don't have it in you to quit. You just keep going. And that's awesome.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what it takes. That's what it takes out here. And so now that you do this pitch and hopefully you gain representation, so that way you have an agent and they can start submitting their screenplays to production companies, and that way they can get them read, kind of get all that going. Is there
Uh-huh.
anything from AFI, looking back, I know it hasn't been that long, that you felt like was a golden nugget that you took away and been like, just this experience right here, this one thing alone was worth me coming here?
Wow. Really want to think about that. There's been a lot of nuggets. I wonder if I can think of one. I will say what comes to mind immediately, the last feature workshop that I had, I feel like a lot of my peers, especially in that class, would agree. We had a professor named Pat Verducci. She's amazing. She's amazing. She actually took all of us out to like brunch afterwards, like had like a send off with us that was just very sweet. And she's amazing and kind. She dropped a lot of gems throughout the semester, but I do feel like what I really appreciated about her class was that she just created a space for us to really be able to share how we were feeling about the process of writing, in addition to getting feedback on the writing, because, you know, the AFI tagline is your best work starts here. And for some reason in my mind, I was like, my best work will be here. And I was like trying to make everything like just be very intentional about it all. But you can't really be precious with, there's a balance, because, if you're pursuing perfection and there's no such thing under the sun, you can lose sight of things, and maybe you can be distracted. Maybe that prevents you from finishing and all these different things. And in her class, we were able to talk about those little things that we were being precious about or felt nervous about. Like, okay, what do you all feel like going into your rewrites? How can we address, maybe we want to introduce different story structures and get exposed to different models of that. And all the resources that she shared with us was just really about like, what do we want our process as writers to be? Because we all have that creativity, but it's going to come down to like how we execute it. And she was really amazing, just helping us to be intentional and mindful about what the process looks like. What does our routine look like? How will we even support each other, hopefully, on the other side of things. So yeah, I'll say that she is one of the biggest gems. I had amazing professors throughout both years. But that last, and it's also very fresh because that's my last workshop that I took.
5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
I would like to have directed the feature for Brownstone by then. I also plan to have my own production company as an in-house writer director, getting to work on my own stories and building teams around that. I also would like to revisit an outreach program that I started while I was at Hampton in Virginia. It's called Ebony Einstein. And my school is very service oriented. And I started volunteering at the local Boys and Girls Club. And the program that I'm talking about, Ebony Einstein, the mission of it is to educate, empower, and inspire Black youth through film. And I feel like growing up, there was always the sports teams, and you never really had to worry about them being like cut. I feel like that's probably even maybe just a general thing, but arts programs, they tend to kind of, it's easier for them to disappear, unfortunately, or for the arts programs not to be as poured into. So although I did start that at the Boys and Girls Club, I'd like to revisit it, revamp it, and expand it as like a vehicle to defend arts education in public schools and private schools, hopefully, just so that there is protection around it, and a bunch of things that fall under that branch. But the big three would be the feature for Brownstone and getting my first feature under my belt, as well as the production company and Ebony Einstein.
Respect. Right on, Kenya. That's really beautiful too. That's a really beautiful concept, and teaching through the art of film, inspiring the youth. That's amazing. That's a great concept. And you did that at the Boys and Girls Club? Like, you created that program there?
Yeah.
Whoa. And you just screened films? Is that kind of what you did,
We
or?
did. We screened one of my earlier shorts called Free Dirt. We screened that. I also was able to bring like people from Hampton to come in and do like a screenwriting workshop with them. We did a Black History Month program. And then there were existing programs at the Boys and Girls Club, like typically they come in and they have their homework to help out on. Power Hour, I think it was called. So helping with that. I was there consistently enough that they designated me over this other program called Smart Girls, Skills Mastery and Resilience Training. And then I would blend that with Ebony Einstein. But yeah, I had a great time. And again, just really seeing the impact and being able to build relationships with youth and kind of see their development and growth. And that's something that I definitely want to continue doing and hopefully revisit and make it expand the blueprint and really do that by way of the arts education programs at schools and whoever and whatever else comes from it too. I feel like it
For sure.
could be a lot more that goes into it for sure. So yeah, we'll see. The best is yet to come.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Kenya, for being on, and we're going to circle back and we're going to catch up and see where we're at with all these goals. Best of luck to you at Pitch Fest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to share my story.